Opposition Leader Tony Abbott, thanks for joining us and happy Easter.
And to you, Chris.
You must be thinking that all your Christmases have come at once, the way things have been going for the government.
Chris, look, the government had a bad week, but the country had a worse week, because if the government is going badly, Australia goes badly. When you can't have confidence in the government, it's hard to have confidence in our country. And this is the thing that disappoints so many millions of Australians right now. We're a great country, we're a great people, but we're being let down by a bad government.
This is the issue that's starting to develop for you, though, in that the government's had so much trouble. There's a sense that you're looking to skate into government without enough scrutiny as a small target opposition, not putting out your policies, your plan for the country. Now, a lot of your policy work is done. We hear that the IR policy and communications policies are ready to go. Why not get them out there so that the voters of Australia can have a look at them?
Well, Chris, let's scotch this myth that there's been no scrutiny of the opposition. Every day there would be a half a dozen government ministers who come on to Sky News, who do doorstops and interviews, attacking the opposition. I mean, this is the most attacked, the most scrutinised opposition in history.
Because they do talk a lot about the opposition, there's no doubt about it. We hear Abbott, Abbott, Abbott from the government. But what about the policy detail? You need to get an industrial relations policy out there, for instance. We also need to know in detail what Malcolm Turnbull plans to do with the NBN. Get that detail out to the public. It's give the voters your vote of confidence that they can understand your policies.
And all in good time, Chris. Obviously, we are not going to go to polling day with the voters in doubt as to exactly what will happen under a coalition government. The last thing I want to do is be one of those politicians who says one thing before an election and does the opposite afterwards, because that's why we are in trouble as a political class. Too many members of the current government, the Prime Minister in particular, have broken faith with the public, and that's the last thing that I will do. But I would, Chris, encourage people to read this book.
They can get that online. I know you mentioned that many times, but
and
we still haven't got the detailed policy. And you've got the budget coming up soon, and that's going to take over a lot of the debate, of course, with what the government announces there. And then, of course, we've got the election in September at the latest. Now, surely you're running out of time to get those detailed policies out.
Well, I've said already that we'll have our workplace relations policy out in weeks rather than in months, and I think you can be confident that the broadband policy will be out sooner rather than later. And every day, Chris, we are there with a positive message. In the last parliamentary sitting week, I introduced private members' legislation to try to ensure a level playing field between company officials and union officials who do the wrong thing by their shareholders or members. We had a major seminar on the two-way street Colombo plan, because one of the things that people will notice that's different under a coalition government is that there will be proper consultation, there will be due process, there won't be this kind of divide the nation, them against us thing that Simon Crean and Martin Ferguson have so, I think, correctly pointed out about the current government.
Just on dividing the nation, you're saying that when Parliament resumes in May for the budget, you will put up a no confidence motion in the government. Now, I think you're really bound to do that, given your critique of the government. But isn't that going to undermine good governance? Shouldn't you hold off on that so that the government can actually lay out its financial plan for the year?
Well, there's no doubt that we will look at the budget, but I would be amazed, given what we already know about this budget, the fact that debt is coming close to $300 billion, and this government has no plan to get us back into surplus.
They just got a AAA credit rating.
But the fact of the matter is debt is rapidly approaching $300 billion. They have no plan to get us back to surplus. They haven't released updated budget figures. They told us that the much promised surplus wasn't going to happen at the end of last year, but they haven't given us anything more. They're about to raid everyone's superannuation piggy bank. Given what we strongly suspect will be in the budget, I'm very confident saying that we will have all the grounds in the world to move no confidence in this government in budget week.
Just on that superannuation issue, that you were saying that you would oppose the removal of concessions, tax concessions for super of high income earners, yet you're not promising that you would reinstate them if you were elected. Surely you can't have a bob each way on that. If they're going to be bad decisions, you should be promising that you will repeal them as well.
Chris, what we can't do is solve all the problems that this bad government has created overnight. There are many things that this government has done that we don't like, but it will take time to repair the damage that this government has done. We've long said that we don't like the private health insurance means test. We don't like all the other changes that we fear this government is going to make to private health insurance. But given the budgetary position that this government has left us, it will be difficult to make time-specific commitments as to when we can restore these things.
I just want to get you quickly on another key policy issue, and that's border protection. Now, a lot of people say you can't turn back the boats.
Well, we can.
I'm not going to run that line because I know that the Howard government did. But it is dangerous. It does lead to people sabotaging the boats, and it won't be openly supported by Indonesia. Are you prepared, as a Prime Minister of this country, to put the lives of people at risk through this policy, because you know it is a very, very difficult process to adopt, and also to deal with the diplomatic fallout with Indonesia?
Chris, if you're serious about stopping the boats, you've got to have the option of turning them around. That's the first point I make, and I really want to stress this.
You don't underestimate how difficult that is and how dangerous it is.
But if you are serious about stopping the boats, you've got to have the option of turning them around. Any government which rules that option out is not serious about border security, just not serious. Now, the other point I want to make is that we will work much more diligently with Indonesia than this government ever has. We know that the former government, the Howard government, worked closely with the Indonesians. Most of it was never broadcast to the wider world, and that is the right way to work with the Indonesians. It's to be a trusted partner. It's to have a no surprises policy. It's to take them into your confidence before you do things and not just argue about it publicly afterwards. Now, I am very confident that with the right approach to the Indonesians, we will be able to do this just as effectively in the future as we did in the past.
Just while we're on immigration, during the last election campaign there was a bit of a competition between you and Julia Gillard to sort of promote a small Australia, reduced immigration in Australia. To quote you, you said at the time it's all very well for Julia Gillard to say that she's going to stem population growth. The question is how. Are you now prepared to say that that was a mistake and that you should now be promising an expansive immigration policy in the national interest?
Chris, I am glad to see people coming to this country. Every time someone chooses Australia, I rejoice, because that is a vote of confidence in our country. It's a terrific vote of confidence in our country. I want migrants coming the right way, not the wrong way, and that's why I'm so determined to defend our borders. And one of the reasons why John Howard was able to really improve public support for immigration was because he was able to stop the boats. And
so you favour an expansive immigration program?
Well,
you're for a big Australia? Well,
if I may say so, Chris, you're trying to put words in my mouth.
Yes.
I want people to opt for our country, but I want people to be chosen by us, and I want them to make a contribution from day one. Now, the vast majority of migrants to this country from the beginning have done that. They've chosen this country, we've welcomed them, and they've contributed from day one. And one of the reasons why I am so appalled, as are so many decent Labor people, at the government's attack on the 457 program, is that this has never been out of control. And if there are any problems at the present time with the program, it's this government's fault. But the thing about people who come in on 457s, they are making a contribution from day one. They're coming safely, they're coming legally, and they're making a contribution, they're paying taxes from day one. That makes them the perfect immigrants to this country.
Back onto the search for budget savings. Do you accept the advice that you've got from your close friend, former strong ally, former Finance Minister Nick Minchin, who says that just by freezing the foreign aid budget, not cutting it, freezing it at current levels plus inflation, you could be saving up to or more than $3 billion a year? Is that not an obvious place for you to propose savings?
Well, Chris, it's not our policy. Our policy and that of the government is to lift foreign aid to 0.5% of gross national income.
You'll take that to the election, or is it up for consideration?
Look, our policy is to take foreign aid to 0.5% of gross national income. Now, we aren't going to meet the time frame that was originally envisaged because the government has already slowed down the growth in foreign aid. Believe it or not, Australia is actually the third largest recipient of Australian foreign aid because much of the foreign aid budget is now being spent on border protection and other issues.
That was done in the Howard years as well.
Well, but the point I'm making is that this government is already clawing back from that commitment. It does remain our commitment. It does remain the commitment of the government, and over time, obviously, we are a generous people. We don't want to be niggardly in respect of our poorer neighbours.
Just while we're on foreign affairs issues, and briefly, the Prime Minister's going to China next week. Would you urge her to push China to put more pressure on North Korea?
Of course. North Korea is the ultimate rogue state, and China is really the only country that seems to have any influence over North Korea. Of course, the Chinese should be maximising the pressure on North Korea.
Okay, now to domestic matters in a way, social matters certainly.
Yeah.
We saw your daughters Bridget and Frances take to the political stage in the newspapers on the weekend. Interestingly, they came out in favour of gay marriage. We know your view on gay marriage, but can you tell the voters of Australia that you would allow your Liberal MPs a conscience vote on gay marriage after the election?
Chris, it was a lovely interview, and it was good of the girls to be so forthright, and as you can see, they don't mind disagreeing with their dad. Their mother's done a good job in bringing them up to be forthright young women.
But
Look,
don't you want your own MPs to be able to express their own view in Parliament on this issue?
well, we had a very lengthy discussion in Shadow Cabinet about this. We had quite a discussion in the party room quite a few months back, and the strong view that we came to was that we shouldn't say one thing before the election, where the Coalition and the Labor Party were adamant that we thought marriage was between a man and a woman, the traditional position, and do the opposite afterwards.
Sure, that's why I'm saying after the election. Well, why not say you'll give your MPs a conscience vote after this election?
Chris, it is party policy, coalition party policy, that marriage is between a man and a woman. Now, if future party rooms decide that it is no longer party policy, well then obviously there won't be a whipped vote, but it will be up to future party rooms to determine what the policy is.
Will you be happy then, as leader of the Liberal Party at some stage, to give your MPs a conscience vote on this issue?
Well, as I said, while it's party policy, there's no question of a conscience vote. It only becomes a free vote if there is no policy on the subject.
But are you for changing on that?
Well, my position is very well known.
Sure.
It's the orthodox position, the position that Julia Gillard has. It's the position that Kim Beazley had, that Simon Crean had, that John Howard had.
But they now give their MPs a conscience vote. But that's the threshold issue.
But you asked me about my position.
No, I'm asking about your position on the conscience vote.
And as long as it's party policy, and that's a matter for the party room, there's no conscience vote.
All right, I won't go any further with that. Just before I let you go, I want to ask about your political elder statesman, I suppose, in John Howard. He was criticised for not moving to the Lodge. You, of course, when he was Prime Minister, he based himself at Kirribilli. You, of course, have a Sydney-based family. Have you given any thought to whether you'll live primarily in the Lodge or Kirribilli should you win the election?
Well, two points. First of all, we're not getting ahead of ourselves, and there's still 5 hard-fought months till the election. And the second point is my intention would be to be an orthodox Prime Minister should I get there. But I stress I am not getting ahead of myself, and the last thing an opposition leader should do is start figuring out what colour curtains he wants anywhere.
All right, Tony Abbott, thanks very much for joining us on Viewpoint. Hope to catch up with you again.
Thanks so much, Chris.